All right, welcome to Biblify. Today we will discuss about one of the controversial topic about the evolution theory and what the Bible said about it. All right, let's get started. Okay, when we take a look and read the Genesis 1, actually it is talking about the global creation, right? However, a lot of Christian or even non-Christian, when they read the Bible, they read carelessly, right? They think that a day of creation is 24 hours. Even some Christians also believe that a day here is referred to 1,000 years. However, actually, if you read carefully, a day here does not refer to anything about 24 hours or even 1,000 years. It is referring to a day of the Lord, right? The day of the Lord, that means a day from the from the perspective of God, right? God itself is not limited by time, right? However, human beings are limited by time. A day of 24 hours is a rotation of the earth. However, during the creation, there isn't any earth yet, right? So there is no such thing as a day. So a day here must refer to the timeline where God measure his working from morning until evening, right? However, this is a timeline of God, but noted that God is not limited by time, right? So the time here is not measurable by human perspective. So we can translate in modern word that is found that quite recently, like eon, or maybe era or epoch. When the Bible written 6,000 years ago, or maybe 8,000 years ago, right? There is no this kind of word because we just invented this word quite recently. Okay, if you want to take a look on more detail regarding this topic, you can check my video regarding the geological timeline. We'll discuss about this in very detail and what the Bible verse is about this one as well. Okay, let's get started. You can see here, there are 7 days of creation, and this day is referring a day of the Lord, right? The first beginning is on the Genesis 1. It is said that in the beginning God created the heaven and earth. The earth was formless and void. Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. So this is actually referring to the period of Hadean, right? It's the era or eon of Hadean, right? This is the time when galaxy, stars, sun, moon, asteroid, meteoroid, everything has been created. So it is beginning. So when God created the heaven, so everything starts from the heaven L and all its content, right? So including star, moon, sun, etc. So in the beginning, right, the earth was formless and void. This is the time when the earth is just a molten mixture of rocks. So there is molten mixture rock. There is nothing else, no water yet. And then slowly the earth is cooling down and form the ocean earth. And then this is what it said that the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the water. So exactly what it is, the sequence is quite correct. So there is the molten rock and then finally the ocean. Right? And the earth are covered entirely by the ocean. Right? Then at a time appear a single cell of life, right? So within the earth ocean, they say this is the soup that's producing the cell of life, whatever it is. What the Bible says is all the life on earth is coming from the Spirit of God, right? Which is hovering over the surface of water. This is the time when the life began, right? It is not the animal yet or not plant yet existed, but the single cell of life underneath the ocean, which is coming from the Spirit of God. Right. At the time, the Earth atmosphere are still covered by thick smoke, and there is no such thing as 24 hour. The Earth is just rotation around 14 hours, or maybe earlier than that. Yeah. And then on the day one, where the Achaean period is started, this is when the God says, "Let there be light." All right, this is not the creation of the sun. Bible never mentioned this is the sun. Okay, it is a light, right? And He separated the light from the darkness. So we must carefully read the Bible. Okay, and then this is the time when the light smoke that covering the earth are pretty dark at the time, the entire surface of the earth. So when the smoke disperses, then the sunlight appear on the earth. So this is coming back from the perspective of the writer, which is perspective of the earth, right? The light coming on the earth. And this is not the entirely bright yet. So this is the beginning of dawn and dusk. So this is called morning and evening. So this is afternoon. So when the light appear, then the algae start blooming and the photosynthesis begin and start producing the oxygens, right? So then the second period, which is the Proterozoic period, this is the day two, right? This is when the God says, "Let there be the expanses between the water to separate the water from the waters." Again, the the earth at the time become cooling down, right? Because of uh, the rotation of the Earth and the orbiting of the Earth around the Sun is getting further, and the Earth become the ice ball, cooling down and return become the Earth ball, right? Then slowly this Earth ball is actually retracted, right? And melting down, and there is a time when the oxygens produced within the ocean are released and the atmospheric begin. And this is the time when the ocean, right, separated from the sky. It's producing the water beneath and the water above. The atmosphere are formed. So, however, there are still partial cloud because of this release of the oxygen, right? There's still a little bit darkness, but not very dark. There has been some light on it. Okay, and then on the day three, this is the time on Paleozoic, right? Let the dry line may appear, let the earth bring forth vegetation, Genesis 1:9. So this is when the time its volcanic activity began, right? Yeah, partially smoky, right? And then the islands start to appear. So in the time, the earth are just a single continent called Pangaea. And then the island appear and separated. Then slowly merge become a single continent, Pangaea, and then the vegetation and plantation appear on Earth, right? So this is the time where, on the period of the formation of the single continent, right? Okay, and the Earth, the water separated from the land, the dry land appear, which is the Pangaea, the entire continent, and the the time as well, the plantation start to appear on the Earth. Okay, on the day four, is something related to the Carboniferous period, right? This is when the God says, "Let distinguish the day and night." Which is again, this is not the sun or moon. This is about day and night, right? It is to sign the mark the season of days and years. Okay, this is the appearance of the clear sky because of the oxygen, so it's clearing up, and then the sunlight getting brighter. The day and night become stabilizing the rotation of the Earth, right? The atmospheric rotation causing the weather. So we have 24 hours rotation of the Earth at this time. Then the water circulation begin and form the climate and season, and the jungle that is appearing on the plants that are appearing on the surface of the dry land, right, become a dense forest. Right? Then the life on Earth in terms of animal and plant coming out here. Okay, that is called the time began from the Cambrian Devonian, which is the day 5. God created the great sea monster and every winged bird. Okay, this is again the word is the great sea monster. Monster is not just a small fish. Okay, it's a diversification of marine life. Just when amphibians slowly coming out, so you have the great fish and great sea monster, and then amphibian, and then slowly become a small reptile, and finally birds, right? And this is day 5. And then on the day 6, then this is the Permian Neogene period, right? This is the day 6. God made the beasts of the earth and everything that creep on the ground. So this small reptile finally become a giant reptile. So you have all this one. This is talking about this period, right? Cambrian period, Paleozoic period, and this small reptile become all these animals, and finally grow up, end up becoming the human. So you can see here, first skeletal begun. This is the Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian period, which is under the Paleozoic period, and then this is the Carboniferous, which is the day 4, right? And this is the beginning of day 5, which is the real uh, reptile that is appearing on Earth, right? Yeah, and this is the day 5. And finally, the base of the Earth coming out. This is the day 6, right? And then everything that creeps on the ground. And finally, on the day 6 as well, God created the human, right? Giant reptile extinction event finally happened during this Triassic era. And then all these Jurassic or the dinosaurs are extinct. And then the planet become the planet of mammal, right? And finally become the planet of apes. And finally from there, the human began, right? Again, on the quaternary period where the human began. God says, God created man in his own image. Okay, male and female, he created them. Okay, this man here is not yet Adam and Eve. Okay, this is different from the Genesis 2. Genesis 2 is a subsequent event right after the Genesis 1. Okay, Genesis 2 is another period talking about the small Eden underneath the Gulf, Persian Gulf, underneath the ocean Gulf. So the human here on the Genesis 1 is referring to the ancient human being, like ancient skeletal, like uh, prehistoric human, like Homo habilis, Homo neanderthal, Homo erectus, which is actually Homo erectus itself is finally as the modern human being, which is Adam and Eve, which mentioned in the Genesis 2. It's not in the Genesis 1. Okay. Then the 7 days, when God blessed the 7th day and he rested from all the work that he has done. So this is when the Ice Age began. So this is the Ice Age happening between 20,000 to 10,000 years ago. Then start the Eden Garden appear as the earth are covered by ice. So the entire earth are covered by ice. But there is one small Eden, small garden appear on the icy earth, right? And this garden is called Eden. Where is the Eden location? It's somewhere in the Persian Gulf, right? Later we talk about it in more detail. So now maybe you have a question. How about the sequence of the evolution? Why is from the God created the fish first and then finally uh, bird and then after that the monster? It's not the other way around because the bird is coming from the reptile, right? Okay, now think about it. The sequence of evolution actually is more complex than what you thought, right? Common belief from many textbooks that we have or many research that we have done, basically we believe that after fish will come the amphibian and then reptile, birds, and then finally from the reptile become a mammal. Right? However, if you take a look on the fact and reality today, right? There are something happening, like the fish that come become a bird, right? There are also mammal that become a fish, and also a bird that become a fish like penguin, right? And reptile that become amphibian like turtle, for example. You can see the fish that turn become a bird. There's a flying fish, right? There's mammal that become a fish, which is an example is the dolphin. So all these things are actually reverse evolution. So now you're confused, right? Then you think about it again between flying and swimming versus running, right? Which one is actually closer, right? Flying and swimming are closer in movement, right? Compared to the running. So fish, which is swimming on the ocean, and the flying actually they have the same basic movement. And then gliding, diving versus jumping, which one is closer? Right, definitely is gliding and diving actually are closer. So you can see that actually fish movement and which is diving and bird movement which is gliding, they have a closer movement, right? Then how about the virus, bacteria, vertebra, invertebra, insect, etc. Doesn't it consider as animal? Okay, the Bible does not have to mention it everything, right? So between this day one until day fourth, actually there has been some life on it, but the Bible does not mention it in detail, right? So, all right, that's that's a book of the first Genesis. Now take a look on the Genesis 2. As we mentioned before, the land of Eden is actually located in intersection of four rivers, which is Pison, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. Now take a look on Genesis 2:10. Now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it branches into four headwaters, right? The first is Pison, and then the second river is Gihon, the third river is Tigris, and the fourth is Euphrates. Okay, the Garden of Eden is located beneath the intersection of these four rivers. So if you take a look on the map of the Tigris and Euphrates River today, there are actually those two rivers that is still existing. However, it's difficult to find where is Pison and Gihon, right? However, uh, it is we can determine determine somewhere the location of Eden is somewhere around this intersection, right? However, it's very difficult to determine the exact location. However, from the latest satellite imaging, it shows actually the track of missing river. So here you can see the Pishon, and Gihon, which is the current river. So most likely, the location of Aden is submerged under this Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf. So that's most likely what is the origin of Adam and Eve, right? Which is in the beginning of Ice Age, which is around 20,000 years ago, sea level dropped because the whole Earth are becoming the icy Earth, right? So the Garden of Eden was exposed. So this is actually underlying valley, right? There is no sea here. However, in the end of the Ice Age, then around 10,000 BC, the sea level rises. So then what happened is that the Eden Garden slowly submerged. There is possibility that there is a sudden flood of the Strait of Hormuz, where actually here there is called a Strait of Hormuz, right? Strait of Hormuz is somewhere around here, right? Then this is the high-lying area. So here is the ocean. So when the ocean bursts, then the entire low-level lying area valley here, the Eden Valley, are basically submerged immediately. So it's a sudden flash. So it's a sudden flood. Sonar imaging under the Persian Gulf shows that there is a submerged forest within the river valley. The contour or landscape of show there is a beautiful garden as big as Great Britain. The oldest human civilization ever found is actually in the Ubud, which is the western part of this region, and Sumerian, which is on the northern side of the Persian Gulf. So these are the oldest civilization. However, we do not know actually there are older civilization, which is the civilization of Adam and Eve, which is now gone, basically under the Eden Garden, right? Right. Let's continue. Now, we'll take a look more detail regarding what the Bible says and what's the difference between Genesis 1 and 2. Again, we need to read the Bible carefully. A lot of people read the Bible carelessly. Even we think that we know a lot of things that the story about the Bible might be fictionary. The problem is that we didn't read it correctly. Okay, now take a look on the Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. What are the difference? Okay, Genesis 1 is talking about the global creation that happened all over the earth somewhere around 550 million years ago. Yeah. Since the Cambrian period, there is an explosion of mammals, explosion of reptile, etc., animal and birds from the great sea monster, etc. However, in the Genesis 2, it is talking about local Eden garden, as we mentioned already, which is under the Persian Gulf, and the timeline is quite recent, which is 10,000 years ago. Okay, now if you take a look of the wording between the Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, actually, Bible mention distinct wording between those two, between the fish, right? In the Genesis 1, it was addressed as a sea monster or even great sea monster. It's a swarm of living creature based on ESV, and taming of living creature based on LSV. And then in Genesis 1:21, it is said as great sea monster or magnificent marine creature, ISV version, right? However, if you take a look on Genesis 2, somewhere after Genesis 2 in the book of Deuteronomy 4:18, it is called fish in the water, ASV version, fish in the water, LSV version, and also fish of the sea or fish in the sea, based on ASV and ISV version. You see here, there are a great difference of this wording. So, right? Fish of the sea and fish in the water is just a small fish. Swarm of living creature as a big fish. Crazy monster is a magnificent or great. Marine creature is just a massive kind of fish. Okay, so this wording shows that there is an evolution happening. Right? There are evolution that happen. And actually the evolution is part of the creation. Okay, then the winged bird and bird in the sky. Also, we take a look on the wording between what is in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. You can see here, Genesis 1, the bird are addressed as the bird that fly across the vault of the sky. That means the bird that's flying sky high, right? And also the falls fly in the open firmament of the heaven. Open firmament is the highest of the atmosphere, right? So however, in Genesis 2, it's just addressed as bird of the sky or fowl of the air. Right? In Genesis 1:21, it's called winged fowl or winged bird. It's a bird that has wing may not be able to fly. It's a large wing, right? However, in Genesis 2:20, falls in the air, birds of the heaven. So this term actually already mentioned the great difference, right? Between this kind of bird, which is we know it now with the modern wording like Pteranodon or Archaeopelaric versus the bird that we know today, right? Okay, and also the same goes for this Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 regarding the animal. In Genesis 1, it's called as the beast of the earth, where while in the Genesis 2 onward, it actually called beast of the field, right? So you can see here, Genesis 1:24, based on the ESV version, is called the creeping things or the beast of the earth, this huge animal, right? And the crawling thing, beast of the earth in ESV version. However, in Genesis 2:19, it is called beast of the field. The field is smaller than the earth, right? Living creature or just animal of the field, living creature. That's it, right? So it's that refers to the animal that we know today compared to the great dinosaurs or maybe Chronosaurus or Stegosaurus or whatever, right? So Genesis 1:25 it also addresses again the beasts of the earth or everything that creeps, right? The everything that crawls in ASB version. However, again in the Genesis 2:20 it's addressed as beasts of the field or animal of the field. Again, however, the other Bible is just simply translated as wild animals, so it's just obscuring the difference. So you just need to compare it between different versions of the Bible in order to reveal this thing. Okay. Okay. Now again, we are talking about the difference between what is in Genesis 1 and 2 regarding creation. Okay. There is the word created and the word form. There is a big difference between these two words. Okay. In the Genesis 1 is actually the period between 4.5 billion years ago until 500 million years ago. There happening an evolution in between, and that happened globally. Again, I repeat again. The story of Genesis 1 is regarding the creation and evolution that happened globally around 550 million years ago. Okay, and Genesis 2 is actually a period between 10,000 years ago, which is located locally in the Eden Garden, which is now known as Persian Gulf, right? Adam and Eve formation 10,000 years ago happened in Eden Garden. Then it is mentioned that the evolution had occurred. Why? Even the Bible itself says the word form. You know what's the difference between the word created and the word form? Okay, the word created actually means that you are created from something, from nothing into something. Okay, the word creation refers to creating something out of nothing. However, the word form means that you were transformed from one form to another form. So you were transformed from one shape to another shape. It doesn't matter what kind of shape before, right? But it basically changed over the time. Over the time. So this word form refers to transformation. Okay. In Genesis 1, it is said that God created the sea monster in every living creature that moved, with which the waters swarm according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. You can see here the word is created. Okay, and also Genesis 1:25, God made the beasts of the earth according to their kind, and livestock according to their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. Again, the word is made, which is the same as created, right? So God created a man in his own image. In his image, God created him. Male and female, he created them. Genesis 1:27. Okay. However, in Genesis 2, if you read properly, now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heaven, and brought them to the man to see that what called them he would call them, right? So the word here again is form, means transform from one form before to another form, right? So again in Genesis 2:7, when God created man, God formed man, he says that the Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostril the breath of life, and the man became the living creature. Again, the man of dust doesn't mean that he was formed from the dust, right? Again, as mentioned here, out of the ground the Lord had formed every beast. So thus the human being as well is actually coming from the ground, just the if you track back all the evolution, everything basically coming from the ground, from the single cell of life, right? Okay, and again, when the human die, basically, again he come back to the ground. And here are the way from the modern science we can track back actually human, ancient human, which is in Genesis 1. Actually, we have the evolution that happened a couple million years, right? Actually, there are branches of many ancient human, right? So we have Homo erectus, Neanderthal, habilis, etc., blah blah blah, Posei africanus. However, only finally out of different species of human, only the one that is surviving, which is Homo sapien, which is actually where Adam and Eve became. right? So all these things is actually coming out from the evolution. So again, one thing that we need to make sure that evolution actually is part of the creation. Evolution does not mean that God didn't involve on evolution. Nothing about it. If evolution happened without God, then the evolution will not be a good evolution, right? Think about like it can be anything without God direction. Okay, it's like a cancer cell, right? It can grow to any direction without any shape. But think about it. Human now have two eyes, nose, yeah, mouth. We have hand, we have leg, and we also have limbs and all the things working properly. And this is happened because of the evolution and because of the word of God, because God direct everything in orderly. Okay, if you think that you can survive just by evolution without God, it's not make any sense. You can say that you can survive yourself without father and mother. It's not possible, right? So without God, evolution cannot happen. Period. All right. Thank you for watching and see you for our next video. Bye bye.